Because I'm seeing a lot of stocks just like consistently red for the past little while here.
That means they're on sale.
That means they're on sale. Oh man, I gotta get on those Steam sales of stocks, boys. Let's go. Add it to my Steam library. I mean, we're always witnessing history in the making. Anything that happens this year will be histoy in 50 years.
Yeah,
so,
no, I had a burrito yesterday from Chipotle.
Dude, that's like ancient history, man. Wow, that's
yesterday.
Nah,
I had
too long ago for me.
Hello and welcome to the Casual Coders podcast. My name is Kyle. We're here with a bunch of my friends. We are people who generally tend to talk about nerdy topics, sometimes coding, sometimes not. Merry Christmas, everybody, by the way, and happy holidays. And today we're joined by a special guest. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Robert. Chandler asked me to be on here to be your resident legal advisor, even though I am a student. I do find this stuff immeasurably fascinating, and I cannot thank Chandler enough for forcing me to research some of these things. Blink twice if you're under duress, but I'm having a great time so far, and I'm just happy to be here. Thank you.
That's good to hear. It does have to be said, he is not your lawyer. He is not providing you legal advice. This is not a legal podcast. We're a bunch of idiots sitting at my dinner table, all right? Thank you.
A dinner table that we had to expand, mind you.
Yes, the expanded dinner table so that we could all fit in a nice line like this.
Speaking of topics, Chandler, do you want to start us off?
Okay, so two of my topics are car related this week. So this one I mentioned to you guys the one before, but this is the one that I haven't mentioned, and I want to talk about it. The company Nikola, which got into a lot of trouble recently with the fact that one of their cars was basically fake, and they were just rolling
these
it
are
down
the guys
hill.
with the fake car. Yeah,
They actually have a working truck now that actually functions correctly, and they sold two of them to a shipping company, and their stock fucking skyrocketed, like it soared. So, like, what do you guys think of, like, Nikola trying to redeem themselves and, like, actually delivering on their promises now?
I mean, it's good that they're redeeming themselves, but at the same time, they fucked up pretty hard originally. So,
Rob, are you familiar with the whole Nikola issue?
I'm not, actually.
Okay, so what happened is that Nikola is this electric car company that was trying to compete with Tesla, and they had partnered with GM to make a bunch of trucks. Okay. And one of the trucks they were trying to advertise was this massive semi-truck that was supposed to be I think it was part hydrogen, part electric powered, if I'm not mistaken. And it was supposed to be like the next big thing. And they showed off a video of it actually working. Well, as it turns out, people noticed that the road they filmed on was on a hill. And then it came out, so there's some internal documents that they were just rolling the truck down a fucking hill.
Are you kidding me?
It wasn't working, no. And I'm dead serious. And like the CEO is like getting indicted for that right now.
And rightfully so.
Yeah, and what happened was when that video released, their stock soared, and he sold a bunch of it.
Oh my goodness.
You would be shocked how many companies actually that there are that fake like their investment videos.
I mean, hey, this sounds a lot like another company that I know called Tesla. You know, that truck that they promised all those years ago.
They have working models, though. They've
never delivered a truck, all right?
You're right. They haven't delivered a truck, but they have like working trucks now. And actually, I just saw a news article today about that, where they actually have like trucks that they've been testing with delivering their Teslas using the trucks.
I'm still skeptical until I see one actually functioning.
That's fair.
Yeah, that's
like
fair.
Need to take a trip to California.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna take a trip to California
at the Gigafactory because
right.
Elon Musk thinks it's funny.
I'm here to tour your Gigafactory. I want to see the batteries that you guys make and your truck too.
Their batteries are supposed to be super cool though. There's a bunch of really cool advancements that they're doing for their.
Yeah, they made it bigger so it holds more energy. Oh man, dude, that's just insane.
Well, not only that, but
wow.
Their supply chain thing that they discussed, I thought was super interesting. Like normally, a battery maker goes into 10 different people to get like a giant amount of a resource, a bunch of nickel or a bunch of whatever.
Right. Yep.
Maybe.
And then goes through they take those materials, force them through processes, and then put them into the form of a battery. Right. However, so far, in order for those companies to get those large amounts of whatever they need, like let's say they need silicon for whatever reason, they can't get like just silicon. They might get like silicon oxide or something, like a combination.
Right, they got to refine it down to a more usable material.
Exactly. So one thing that they've really focused on is actually being like, okay, what materials do we need? Where are they gotten from on the Earth? And then how do we make the getting it from the Earth into a battery as short as possible. And because of that, it turns out that they can cut out like actually a lot of middleman steps along the way.
I mean, that is good. We use lithium ion cells in
Sorry,
just about everything. So beneficial to make that at least a little more efficient and more environmentally friendly.
There you go.
I don't know. I'm still skeptical. I want to rag on them for the idea of stuffing batteries in their car like frames, because I want to rant about this one, because we need more rantable topics, you know?
Yeah, I'll fight you on this too, because I actually like Tesla.
You'll fight me? Okay, you fucking Tesla soy boy. All right.
Yeah. Tesla simp I am.
Yep, okay. So, batteries, they've got a limited lifespan, generally about 3 years for a standard 18650 cell, which is what's generally used in your car. So, you stuff all the batteries in the frame of the car. You can no longer replace the batteries without replacing the entire frame of the car, i.e. just the car. So now your car that you wanted to last 10 years lasts 3 years, and you're out of luck when all the batteries die and their capacity is all gone.
Yeah, well, that 3-year method doesn't mean after 3 years.
I mean, you're right. They degrade to 80% of their life or whatever, and then they'll keep degrading and degrading some more. And by the time they're, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, your car goes 20 miles. And
well, I mean, it'll be like 50% capacity, I think, at that point. But
I'm not totally sure. I just know that they degrade, and it depends on how you run them. You can degrade them faster or shorter.
So I was curious, so I looked up a picture of it, and my tryptophobia is fucking triggered by this dude.
I'm curious. I don't know what it looks like.
It's a honeycomb.
It looks like a fucking.
Oh
bee.
yes. Yeah. The batteries are all honeycomb.
Oh yeah,
together.
the battery in the frame of a car or whatever.
Yeah. It looks. It's so weird.
I don't have a problem with that. I'm sorry.
This is a BMW i3. This is not Tesla's, by the way.
That's fine.
But either way, I think BMW is doing the same thing that Tesla's doing, and they're trying to embed the batteries in the frame of the vehicle.
I mean, I'm still just inherently against it, but I'm also inherently against Tesla because their repair practices are the worst thing that I've ever seen in a car.
Agreed,
Okay.
but I think the
I'll
right
give
to
you that
repair
one.
will fight.
You'll give me that one?
I'll give you that
Yeah,
one.
replacing asking a customer to replace a $16,000 for an $8 plastic fitting that broke. Oh man.
Yeah, that one.
Rage-inducing, man.
That, and also like when you get your car, if there's like little imperfections, it's kind of like, oh well. That's
Oh
what I
yeah,
think
right.
about
Yeah,
it.
because they're an up-and-coming manufacturer.
That's why
that's
I
been
wouldn't
around
buy
for
a
5 years.
Tesla. Actually, is because of the quality control issues they've been having.
Yeah, man, I think you made a good choice not buying a Tesla.
To be fair, they've been getting better and better, I hear. So
And more
that at least.
performance and
I mean, they
other
should.
shit.
Elon Musk was briefly the wealthiest man in the world.
Yeah,
I don't know
that's
if
true,
He
that's
still
true.
is, but he's up there.
I don't know. He's probably surpassed by Tim Apple
Apparently,
or something, right?
he might be getting sued. That's another thing I saw in another topic.
when
I
is
wanted to go
Elon
over.
not getting sued?
Well, no, he might be getting
You know,
sued
that is a
because
good
they think
question.
him selling all of his stock might have been insider trading.
Oh yeah, so I don't.
Well,
have
how
as
about the
much of-
Nikola's thing? Let's bring that back, right? Because Nikola, I mean, they did blatant insider trading, right? In like driving up the stock and then immediately selling a whole bunch of stuff, right? Knowing that their thing was faked.
Well,
Yeah.
The issue with Elon is the FTC cited his tweets about his stock as insider trading because he was unduly influencing the public to
I mean,
buy
I
or
guess
sell.
that is fair. He's just got a tweet about Doge and it just skyrockets. so
Like, I have no idea how he's gonna win or lose that case because it's one of those things where it's a tweet.
but also, right? He's a millionaire or a billionaire or whatever. It doesn't matter. Whatever they find him for is a drop in the bucket. It doesn't matter.
They could find him $1 billion, and the only people that would be hurt would be anyone who invests in like the manufacturer.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would say it's kind of hard though, because while he is, a billionaire, it's not like he's a liquid billionaire, so having to actually pay $1 billion, you have to try to sell the stocks. Selling that many of that stock will cause the stock price to go down, which makes people panic. So they sell it, stock further goes down.
I don't like billionaires as much as the next guy, but that bothers me so much when like some people are like, oh, well, he's just a billion. It's like Jeff Bezos is the richest man in the world. Why isn't he actually Santa Claus and just buy us all gifts for Christmas? He knows what we want. He has our list of stuff.
He knows when we're sleeping. He knows when we're awake.
Yeah, because everyone's got an
Knows what I'm
Alexa now.
dreaming about.
I don't remember what's the value, right? How much money can he actually give every person on Earth? I don't think it's all that much.
No, it's not.
Let's
because
r/quick math. real
Yeah,
quick.
right.
How much is his net worth?
his net worth is a lot. However, most of that net worth is tied up in
It's
Amazon stock.
$201.7 billion.
Okay,
200
there's
and what?
201.7 billion.
So if
That's-
there's 7 billion people on Earth, what's 200 divided by 7?
Okay, 200 divided by 7 is 28.5.
So you can only give everyone $28.
Yeah.
But, and hear me out, I'm not saying he should do this. This is just me playing devil's advocate. What if, so in South America, quite a few countries, including Venezuela right now, they're the most common one, the average income per day is $1. So
He could give everyone in South Africa a
South
month
America.
of wages. Sorry, South America,
a
like 1 month of
With that
wages.
said, that's not how that would work because, inflation. If
Yep.
everyone gets a
Yeah,
month's
right,
worth of
exactly. Then they're all
salary
back
overnight,
to the same spot.
Yeah, no,
We just go like, guys, what if all of you guys just never did your jobs like ever again? And like, all right, cool. So they get, let's say that they all got like $1 in their bank account, which for us might be like $100,000 in your bank account.
I
Boom,
don't know
for your
about that
entire
one,
year.
Chief.
Let's
but
just say,
yeah,
let's just
sure,
say,
we'll say it.
everyone gets $100,000 in their bank account today. So everyone doesn't go to work.
yeah.
All right.
And
Oh,
crashes
wow,
the
nothing gets
economy.
done.
I would quit my job today.
Yep. But let's say that everyone quits their job though is the problem.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Which is kind of like what I guess everyone is complaining about the job shortage, but other people are also calling the job shortage, instead of calling it the job shortage, they're calling it the Great Resignation, because a lot of it is just people who are just effing fed up with like the crappy work conditions that people.
Yeah,
in
there's
this country
definitely
have to
been a
go
lot
over
of
with.
that with people being asked
Especially
to do
in the fast food
really
industry.
crazy things and
especially in the
work
fast
ridiculous hours and just dedicate their entire lives to like a fast food company. And obviously that doesn't make a whole bunch of sense.
That's part of the reason
And
why I
so-
quit my job back in
Yeah.
February. It was, I mean, he wasn't as bad as some other companies were, but I got a better job offer, and while I was getting paid the same, it was also work from home, so obviously I was going to take that.
I mean, yeah.
Was the job that you left still a coding job?
No, it was a pizza shop.
Oh, right. I remember you telling me.
Yeah, I
about
used to
that.
work at I worked at a pizza shop for 4 years.
That's a long time, man.
Yeah, but it
Granted,
paid
how
for a
long did
pizza
I
shop.
work?
It paid really well at the
Did
time.
you get a raise every year?
I did, and then depending on what shift you worked, because we got tips, you could get more or less money. So I would always pick and choose my shifts that get me the most money. So I made the equivalent of like $16 to $17 an hour.
That's really good.
In a pizza shop, which at the time, before like now, $16, $17 an hour, that's almost average.
That's the standard rate now.
Yeah.
Like McDonald's
Yeah.
is advertising $15, and I saw one off of. I don't want to dox ourselves.
no, go ahead. We talk about it all the
okay.
time.
I saw one off of Wheatley advertising like a $14 an hour. 0 applications. There was one that was advertising $17.50,
Oh my gosh.
and yes, $17.50.
That's
for
what I
a
made
starting
working
laborer.
IT.
Yep.
Wow.
Why learn a trade?
Why? Yeah. Why
Yeah.
learn a trade? Honestly.
The answer is hypothetically the trades prices will also go up.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
Yeah,
that
but
is
then isn't
cycle.
it just inflation at that point?
yes, it
Yeah.
is.
It
Having
is,
a small amount of inflation is actually a good thing though.
it is.
That's a sign of a strong economy, actually.
Yes. I'm pulling this number out of thin air, but I read an article, I believe, by the Business Insider about a month ago. With all of the COVID relief programs, the United States currency is going to inflate by 4.8%.
Which is not much. That's again a sign of a strong economy.
4.8%. I think that is quite
That's
a
a-
bit,
that's a
actually.
lot, yeah.
I think the standard rate is
It's
2% a year,
it's 2%.
isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, so
somewhere-
we're doubling in a year. Okay, maybe that's not good.
So the argument that this journalist was making was if your wages didn't increase by 4%, you're losing money. And that affects salaried workers more than it affects hourly labor.
Correct.
And
Yeah, that's interesting.
and it's the salaried workers that, sorry if you're an hourly laborer, but in the eyes of most business professionals, those are the backbone of the company.
Absolutely, yeah.
And those are the people that are being harmed the most right now. I'm gonna get off my soapbox real
No,
quick.
but you're right. Like you're 100%
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Because I'm finishing up college, so I'm going to be going into the white collar workforce soon, and that is a concern of mine. Is that okay? Cool. I might make a starting of $80,000 a year, but what if $80,000 a year by the time I get to it is more like 50,000? That's a very extreme case. That's not going to be the case.
That's if we go through
That's a huge percentage.
Yes,
Right.
but either
Yeah.
way,
Yeah.
that's still a concern that I have, and that my potential $80,000 a year salary is no longer worth. It's decreased by 4.8%, and while that's not a lot, that's still enough. Whatever 4.8% of 80,000 is. That's
That's a
still
fair amount.
probably a sizable
it's a good
chunk of
chunk.
money that I've lost.
And also that's sorry.
I was just going to say, I thought I read a headline saying that actually this year it's 6.8% is the actual inflation percentage.
It could
is
be
a lot.
I read that article over a month ago. It could be different.
And like
yeah.
if we're getting into the 10% range, that means that like I would have to make If it's close to 10%.
Yeah, 10% more. If your salary
I'd have to make 10% more.
Make 88K.
Yeah, or if I was making 100K, I'd have to make 110 to make the same.
Exactly.
Yeah, and if you're working a job, every year that you don't get a percentage raise that correlates to inflation.
You said about 2%, right?
Yeah,
about
you're
2%.
you are losing that amount of money per year by staying at the job.
And,
That's wild.
Out of a personal note for myself,
6.81% is
6.8.
Wow.
Good Lord.
as of November.
Yeah.
12 months before November to November.
I got
2021.
A bonus for my last place that I worked at. It was $1,000. It wasn't much, but it was a good chunk of money. And because of all the COVID relief and the rampant inflation, I was like, I'm not going to put it in my standard savings account. I'm going to open a certificate of deposit, which that's essentially you sign a deal, an agreement with the bank, you give them X number of dollars, and you agree that you can't touch it for an X amount of time. And in exchange, they give you a better interest rate. 6.8%. I wish I had that interest rate.
Yeah, that would be.
I'm not going to see that $1,000 for, I believe, another year now. And I'm going to still do better than someone who kept their money in a savings account.
Okay, which is a lot of people, actually. A lot of people don't know how to manage their money and put it,
Well, also, I'm sad. I still live with my parents, so my expenses.
You should be happy. Your expenses should be low then.
No, my expenses are low, but I was doing that because one, if you have the money in the account, you're gonna want to spend it. So I was like, if I get it out of the way, I can also protect it because. In my mind, there's no possible way that inflation goes above 4%, and then now it's 4%. Now it's 6%.
We said.
But this is also like a temporary thing. They said that everyone knew when COVID first hit that it was going to cause like a mini depression in the economy.
Yes.
Which is fine. Like I know people are sad about it and upset about it, but like we were prepared for this.
Yes.
So, but if we want to talk about like interest rates and stuff, I've actually been looking at getting rid of the bank I have because the interest rates are sad.
That is actually not your bank's fault, but it depends on the interest rate a little bit. But
the interest rate is 0.01%.
Hey, that's my interest rate as well.
I get 1 cent
account?
in a savings account. I get 1 cent per quarter, or for $1,000 or something like that.
That makes much more
4 cents
sense.
a
1 cent per quarter. That's great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, but it's like 1 cent per $1,000 or so.
Yeah, and I found another bank, and I'm not going to call it out because I don't remember what it is, but another bank that's 1.25% per quarter. So instead of getting 1 cent per quarter, I would get like $12 a quarter per $1,000.
Yeah, that's significantly better.
Yeah, that is a lot more money. Like to the point where you're still not beating inflation, but it's still a lot better.
It's still a lot better than the.
And it still has like similar. And it's not a CD. It's like a normal savings account. So you can like withdraw. Like I think the federal limit for a savings is 6 times a month. That actually is a federal law. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
It is a federal law because it's at least my bank tried to tell me it was a federal law that you can only withdraw from a savings account 6 times per month.
So you learn new things. I mean, I knew that, but I didn't know it was a federal law. So you learn new things in the podcast.
I guess I'm a felon now.
Well, no, if you do it, they just charge you a fee.
Oh,
yeah.
And that fee goes to is it like a tax? It goes to the federal government.
Okay.
Very good.
I hate the feds.
Yeah, but I mean, like, what it is though is it's a relationship between how much you're risking versus how much you're getting back, right? So it's the least risky if you can keep it in an account, or in your, I guess the least risky is just putting it in your normal account, right? Your checking account. But
sure.
But you probably will get 0 or very, very, very little return from that.
For mine is 0.
Or you can put it in a savings account where you can take it out 6 times per month, and you get a
slightly better return.
Exactly. Or you can put it in a CD where it's locked away, for example, you said for a year, but then you get a guaranteed return, which is cool. And then you have like stocks and real estate where it's like we think it'll go up. But
hope it'll go up.
Yeah, hope it'll go up.
Hopefully it'll go up, but actually it's going down.
Yep. So
if the real estate market collapses again, we're gonna be in for a world of hurt.
You think so?
Do I think it's gonna collapse again?
I mean, it's already collapsed, right?
Yeah.
I thought it was at like an all-time high. Like homes around here, especially.
Well, no, that's the thing. It's a high, but it depends on who you are. Because me and Haley are trying to buy a house, and we're like screwed right now because there's no way. I don't want to spend $100,000 for a house that would have been $50,000 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's not the same kind of bubble that the 2008 financial crisis was, where that was caused primarily by poor investing, banks. Those are the ones who get the blame, and then individual actors. Right now, it's just because it's a seller's market. And what people are worried about now is the prices are probably artificially high. And once that drops down, you're going to have people who invested, like Chandler was talking about, $100 grand in a house that probably wasn't $50,000, but it's like $80,000. And real estate is a long-term investment. And
that's $20,000 lost.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
everyone buying
seconds.
homes now is losing money. If you buy a home, you're gonna lose money.
Exactly. So now you have people who are at our age or older who are looking at buying homes, and they should be really concerned about whether or not this investment is actually a wise choice. And concern and fear tanks economies.
Right.
It destroys things. I'm not saying there's going to be a recession. I doubt there will be. We have plenty of protections in place now, but it's something you have to acknowledge that maybe you shouldn't buy a house.
Yeah. Some people will say, though, if it is a long-term investment, you shouldn't necessarily worry because pretty much if you pick, like, I think the statement is if you pick any point in history, even like right before the financial housing crisis, if you bought at its peak and then you waited the 35 years or whatever, that you'll always get a return.
Yeah. And you will get a return, but it won't be as impressive as it would be. And you have to wait longer to get that return. So if you took out a 10-year mortgage, and after that 10 of years,
Which is not common now. 10 years is like a car loan now.
Yeah.
Car loans are 5 years. I would know.
just for simplicity's sake, say you take out a 10-year mortgage and you pay off your house, and then after that 10 years, you start looking at buying a new house. You want to sell the house that you just bought at a profit. Well, that profit is either going to be smaller, or you might actually, with inflation, be getting exactly what you paid for it. And that is terrible. I'm not in the real estate market, but I'm a little worried.
This is exactly why I told Haley that I'm not opposed to renting next year when we're looking at moving out, because of how bad it would be. I know she really wants to buy because, we'll get a return on investment. Yeah, but what point is that return on investment a loss of $20,000?
Yeah, that is definitely something, right?
Yeah.
You think it's a return on investment, but in this economy, I sort of don't think it is. Houses are so much more.
But rent is also skyrocketing. That's the other issue.
Yeah.
Sure. But you can at least pay the rent at a lower value for a period of time and wait for the houses to come back down in price.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to do. Is I wanted to get like a 1-year lease on I would also prefer to get a 1-year lease on like a house. I really wanted to like rent a small house instead of buying a small house. Rent the small house for a year. Wait for the housing market to calm down, especially since because of Haley going into teaching, she can get like a special type of loan where she gets a guaranteed super low interest rate. Teachers actually get benefits like that. And Haley joked and said it's because the banks know we're poor. But it guarantees a low interest rate. And then if you have a spouse on it as well, it decreases it even more.
Holy cow.
So her and I have a guaranteed like low interest rate almost.
But interest rates are already super
That's
low.
the thing. That's what I was going into.
Yeah.
Right now, the reason why houses are so expensive is because interest rates are such a all-time low during COVID because nobody was buying anything.
Yeah.
So right now you can get a 30-year more. This works out better if you plan to buy a house and live in it for 30 years, because you can buy a house for 30 years and have a significantly lower monthly payment and even pay less for the house over the course of 30 years than you would otherwise. So people who are out crazy buying houses right now are buying them and are saying, yeah, we're keeping this for the rest of our lives,
I guess,
which is fine. But me and Haley have also said that we intend on buying this house, living in it for 5-ish years, and then selling it again.
Yeah.
And I don't want to buy a house for $110,000, put probably a $20,000 to make it livable into it, and then sell it for $110,000 in a couple of years. I would lose $20,000. That is a lot of money, no matter how much inflation we have.
Yeah. And it's not all doom and gloom. I mean, the economy will calm down.
It will, and that's why I want to wait. And that's why everyone's saying is that there will be like again, it won't be as bad as 2008, but there will be like a mini bubble burst, and they're thinking it's going to be 6 to 9 months. There's going to be a little bubble, maybe it was more like 6 to 12. But either way, there's going to be like a mini bubble burst where all of a sudden interest rates go up again, and now nobody's buying houses.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, that's going to suck. but it would work out better for me and Haley, since we don't intend to live in the house for the rest of our lives, to buy the house cheaply with a slightly higher interest rate and live in it for 5 years and then resell it for either roughly what we bought it for or just a little bit more to account for inflation.
Yeah, although one thing that they say, I believe, is that when you're comparing buying a house versus renting a house, oftentimes on the renting side is you take that money that you would have spent buying the house and you invest the difference, hypothetically, and then that is what is used as a comparison point. But how many people actually invest that other portion?
I would want to.
That's interesting, though. Yeah,
I would actually want to, though. I would buy I guess bonds
invest
or something.
$100K or whatever, and then rent for a low amount a month, and then use hopefully the interest from that $100K to help subsidize the rent.
Nobody takes out $100,000 loans for investments. That's the other thing too. Well, everyone will take out a $100,000 loan for a house.
Well, I would say no one says you're supposed to, but hypothetically, if you could, if I told you I would lend you $1 million for a 1% interest rate, you should take that deal.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And then invest it in some fund or whatever that'll give you a much higher.
We were looking into ARK fund. No, dude. ARK, we were doing auto stonks for the project.
Yeah, correct.
ARK had like a 50% return rate over 5 years.
Ridiculous.
That's insane.
They chose, of course, the ideal one to tell you, though.
Well, no, that's the thing, though. That is the ideal one to tell you. But even if that is the ideal one, that's amazing. Because even then, they said their lowest one was 30%, and that's still nuts.
Yeah. Well, so what's more normal, quote unquote, is like the S&P 500, right? Or just an index fund that'll do, like the NASDAQ, for example. On average, it does 7.5% per year over the course of all of the years, basically.
Well, theirs was 50%. That's the thing.
Yeah, it was 50% over 5 years.
Yeah, right? So if you divide that by, right? It's 10%
or am
a year.
I wrong?
Well, no, that's exactly what it is.
Well, the thing is that in actuality, that's
only marginally more than S&P 500 then.
Even the NASDAQ will have years where it does extremely well.
Right.
But there are years where it doesn't do extremely well.
I've got a feeling
ARK has only been around for a decade too, while S&P 500 and I think NASDAQ have been around for close to 30.
I've got a feeling that this year is going to be one of those rougher ones because I'm seeing a lot of stocks just like consistently red for the past little while here.
That means they're on sale.
That means they're on sale. Oh man, I got to get on those Steam sales of stocks, boys. Let's go.
All right,
into my Steam library.
I think I want to shift our topics a little bit.
Yeah,
so I want to talk about like the main tipping point that we brought Rob here for, which was the acquisition of ARM by NVIDIA and why they're being sued by 2 world governments for it.
So I'm going to say I don't have anything on the UK. I just focused on the
That's
United
fine.
States.
No, that's fine. We're American.
We're US based.
Like,
so
really quickly, for people who don't know, like possibly
we should
myself, you should
introduce this.
Yeah, tell me what.
God, I didn't study for this. So
if you want me to, Rob, I can go over what's going on
right
and
now.
You can talk about the legal jargon.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So basically, what's going on in that early in 2021. Are you familiar with ARM, Kyle?
Yeah, the ARM is a manufacturer of silicon products like CPUs and GPUs.
Well, let me rephrase that. They're a fabless manufacturer. So they don't actually make any. They sell the designs to other companies to make. So they license out their designs. They then have other companies like NVIDIA is one of their customers that they make designs of the chips and then they sell the chips. For example, the Nintendo Switch has a NVIDIA-made ARM chip inside of it that's powering the system. So then NVIDIA would sell these to different companies like Qualcomm, Microsoft, whatever. And they would manufacture the chips, and then they would sell the chips back to consumers in different devices. Like, for example, Samsung makes ones for their phones. Qualcomm is more popular in the United States for Google phones and LG, which LG is dead now, but whatever. But yeah, so, and as you know, NVIDIA is a very big semiconductor company. They make different graphics cards. They make, like I said, they make the ARM chips. They make lots of server products and whatever. Well, earlier this year, they announced, we want to buy ARM for $40 billion. And a lot of people were really concerned that means they're going to have a monopoly on what is currently the most popular CPU architecture in the world. And everyone got really concerned. And now is where I turn it over to Rob, who is going over why they're being sued by the FTC.
So the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission. So I have their complaint pulled up on my laptop right now. It is 24 pages, and it's all them justifying why this is a antitrust or monopoly suit, which, keep in mind, We don't get a lot of those in the United States.
You mean the FTC is actually going after antitrust?
No,
oh
the
man,
FTC
that's wild, dude.
Well, like, so also just to verify, right? So companies like NVIDIA and AMD make these CPU designs, right, that are built off of an architecture. As of right now, ARM, which is an architecture, they have to like license that in order to use it inside their designs.
Correct.
Right? That's how it currently is.
Yes, correct.
And it'll change from that to them owning it, and then any other company that wants to use that design to have to go to that company then instead to
Yeah, and
AMD.
The current theory is that NVIDIA owning the ARM IP, they're going to jack up the price to the point where it's non-competitive.
Yes.
That's like the TLDR of the issue.
Well, it also extends, interestingly enough, even past just the price point. So the FTC cites that they're afraid that after NVIDIA acquires ARM, assuming it goes through, that it would reduce competition, not just because of potential price gouging or a lack of alternatives, but that ARM's current clients wouldn't share data with them anymore. And the reason why that's important is because ARM, from what I understand, has sort of a two-way street. If, say, a phone manufacturer wants one of their chips designed, that phone manufacturer will contact ARM and say, hey, these are the dimensions, these are the what we want it to be able to do. But if NVIDIA owns them, they'd also have access to that information about their competitors. And that...
I see.
Yes.
I didn't even think of that. That makes sense.
Yeah, and additionally, they are afraid that post-acquisition, NVIDIA would prevent or strong-arm ARM away from producing anything that isn't like in the direction that NVIDIA is heading. So the FTC cites a couple of things. One of the big ones is self-driving cars. They're afraid that NVIDIA, if they acquired ARM, would prevent ARM from putting money into research and development for self-driving cars because NVIDIA doesn't care about that. And so
It's inherently not true because they actually did sell chips to Tesla for a while.
Okay. But they just bring up, they have 30 examples of different industries that they're afraid of.
Well, I think they did shift away from it because now all Teslas have AMD chips in them, which AMD, I think you probably know, is literally probably NVIDIA's biggest rival.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
But so right now it's not like an antitrust monopoly suit because NVIDIA has a monopoly. It's an antitrust monopoly suit because they're afraid that they would get one and there are no suitable alternatives. Yet.
Do you know what the Apple Silicon architecture is?
ARM.
Is it really?
Yes, it is. And that's the other thing, too.
You're right.
NVIDIA and Apple hate each other. They absolutely despise each other. They cannot stand each other. And that was probably, Apple is probably have a very background hand in this. I think that Apple is the one that's like putting up the money for the lobbyists to like convince the FTC to sue NVIDIA.
That's got to be pretty ironic, I must say, with Apple and all their many issues. With
Apple has to help their opponent in order to hurt their other opponent.
Now that is a very hot
ironic
and controversial take. Do not take that as fact.
Yeah. This is.
However, I wouldn't be surprised if that comes to light in like a decade or something like that.
I'm sure it will. But in section 120 of the complaint, the FTC claims essentially that NVIDIA doesn't need to acquire ARM. Like this is where you get into the realm of why are they going into the personal details of a business. But it states, so I have the entire thing written out here. But long story short, the FTC says, hey, NVIDIA, why would you acquire ARM when you wouldn't get anything more out of it other than more control over your competitors? Because you still have access to their processor technology because NVIDIA licenses with ARM.
Yeah, take that $400 million and just spend that on the licensing that ARM costs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So essentially in section 120, they're saying like, why do you need to acquire this? Like, give us reasons that this is actually a honest business move.
Yeah, like you think ARM will continue to make even. Well, here's the problem, right? Is like they can say, hey, acquiring ARM, it's not just to help us NVIDIA make more money. ARM itself we see how it can make more money, and that by them doing that, that's them taking ARM, them inflating that price because then ARM will make more money.
Yeah, there you go.
That is their business.
So we bought it up and then we increased their prices. Now they make more money.
Look at them. They make more money.
Hold up.
Yeah, so actually I found out not that long ago that AMD actually licenses ARM. They actually do have a line of server processors that AMD manufactures of ARM chips. And like I heard that and I'm like, ooh, AMD is probably very mad.
So now we have two massive corporations who are angry about this.
And I think
how many more?
Now Intel doesn't make any ARM chips, but I'm sure Intel wasn't happy about hearing this either.
Wait, didn't we just say Apple Silicon is ARM based?
Yeah, we did. So Apple and AMD.
And AMD also makes ARM based chips.
Didn't you just say that Apple doesn't make ARM based chips?
No, they do.
Okay.
No, Intel doesn't. That's what I meant. I might have said. Gotcha. I might have said Apple.
I don't think so.
But also Qualcomm? Question mark.
Qualcomm would also be upset because Qualcomm is probably one of NVIDIA's larger competitors when it comes to.
They make like the Snapdragon.
Do any of these companies mentioned like specifically?
So yeah, I actually was just pulling that up.
Since, lovely.
Since you brought up Intel, if you want to look at my laptop, it's a lot of jargon about CPUs.
I see a lot blacked out. That's redacted.
There's random. First of all, in this complaint, there's random things redacted. Like there's a quote from an ARM executive that just gets redacted halfway through.
Wait,
read the quote. Read the quote.
I want to. Yeah,
if you can find it.
Yeah, it's section 120, which is the one I wanted to focus on anyway.
Oh my gosh, I don't understand how you can do this legal stuff. Like, yeah, section 120. I just knew that.
Yeah, section 120 of 8,937.
This is part of his job in the future would be to testify with these legal documents.
Hold on one moment.
I mean, not these ones in particular, but just legal documents like this.
Yeah.
So we're going to send you 10,000 pages of legal documents. Have fun reading through that.
Okay, here we go. It's my bad. It's not section 120. It's no, it is. Okay, never mind. It was just on a separate page. So, indeed, as one ARM executive observed in response to a report about the potential for the proposed acquisition by NVIDIA, and this everything else is redacted. And it's like, why would you? Oh, sorry, I hit the mic. Why would you set that up if it's redacted?
Yeah, that's like, here's something that would like purely showcase like one way or the other.
I would assume it's redacted in the online version, but not
in the
actual
case. They probably didn't say it.
The complaint that I have in front of me, it's the public version.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
much more sense.
It's not like the CIA documents that you see in Congress where like you have entire pages that are just black highlighter.
Oh man.
You have maybe 1 to 3 sentences per page. Redacted.
So you can get a lot of information out of these
still. There's a lot of information.
Yeah, it's kind of really hard because by NVIDIA telling the FTC why it's a good idea, quote unquote, would the FTC be required to keep that information only to themselves because that information could be hurtful if just that
it could be like trade secrets.
Yeah. So anything that would be considered trade secrets or privilege information that would be kept under wraps. But if the deal gets denied, I'm not sure if it'll get released. Like too much would get released publicly, but I'm sure there would be some amount of public statements by all parties involved. But going back to the Intel, what we were talking about before Intel, the TLDR of Section 86 is the FTC acknowledges that Intel is in no way equipped to replace ARM in the production of these semiconductor blueprints in the foreseeable future.
Okay, so basically they're saying Intel literally could not compete with ARM if they tried.
Correct. So, and that's me paraphrasing a lot of legal jargon right now, but they said basically their gist is that Intel is the only ARM competitor right now, and if you buy out ARM, there will be no other competitors. Intel will be dead in the water as well. Correct.
Okay.
And
it's very interesting because Intel is very, very picky about who they license their IP to, their architecture to.
What is the name of Intel's architecture?
X86. The one that literally everyone uses. Yeah, there's only, I think, 6 companies in the world that have access to it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, or something
like that.
What's
the architecture that AMD uses?
AMD, so I'm going to give you a quick computing history of X86.
Yeah.
So, back when X86, I'm actually going to close my laptop because I have this memorized. When X86 first started, Intel is the one that designed it, and like it was a complex instruction set where there's literally thousands of commands that you can use on the processor. So Intel saying that, hey, we can't produce the volume of these chips. We don't have enough production. So they licensed it to different companies. One of them was a company called Cyrix. One of them was AMD, and there's a couple other ones I don't remember off the top of my head. Cyrix would later become VIA Technologies, which is the other. And then there's also AMD, as you probably know. AMD is a big proprietor. So then later, in the early 2000s, AMD said, hey, Intel, we developed an improvement of your architecture, making it, instead of using a 32-bit register system, we use a 64-bit register system. And Intel's like, hey, you can keep our license if you give us rights to it as well. So basically, they kind of strong-armed their way into sharing the license with AMD. And part of it was that then VIA was like, hey, can we have it too? And Intel basically made them sign the same agreement. We're basically saying
Who's
that
VIA again?
VIA is one of the other big three x86 manufacturers.
I don't even recognize this name.
So VIA is way more common in the industrial industry. They make like processors for like robots and industrial
machines. Do they do
machines.
like PLC and
they
that
do
sort
PLCs
of stuff as
and
well?
stuff. Yeah, that's their big
got
thing.
it. Okay. So
but they're PLCs that'll run Windows. Not well, but they will run Windows.
That's wild, man.
But there's also, so now AMD, now that part of their exclusivity with Intel is expired, AMD is now starting to license out x86 64, which is a 64-bit x86 variant, to a bunch of Chinese companies now. You can get Chinese AMD clone chips now.
Oh, that's weird.
But anyway, yeah, that's kind of the TLDR. But that's the other thing too. Intel is still really picky about who they license x86 to. And AMD is really picky about who they'll license x86 64 to. So I think because x86 64 is an extension of x86, Intel has rights as well. So I think technically to license out x86 64, Intel has to agree to it. But because these are Chinese clone chips, I don't think they did, and I don't think they had to, because patent law doesn't exist in China.
Yeah.
It's
interesting.
China is not a friend to intellectual property.
Yeah.
No.
But anyway, continue your rant about how Intel can't compete
Hold on,
with
sorry.
NVIDIA.
Right before that, I do have another question though, because there's just for reference of like the architectures that exist, just because we're very close to that, I was wondering, there's the x86 one, right, that have thousands of instructions that you can do on a processor.
Yes.
Isn't there a open source simple set of instructions?
Yeah, that's called RISC-V, and that was the big that's the big thing. I bet you NVIDIA will argue this in the future. Did RISC-V ever come up in the FTC document? It's RISC dash, then the
Control F
numeral
real
V.
quick.
Yeah, right.
Just put in RISC and see if anything shows up.
Yeah, because it's reduced instruction set computing. So you got a smaller number of instructions to accomplish the same task, I believe.
Yeah, but because of that, they
the
can
goal
do it
behind that
faster,
is to go much faster, right? Because you don't have to look up a whole bunch of instructions or whatever. It's just a small number.
Was RISC-V ever brought up?
It could be. I have a PDF right now.
Oh, you can't search
that's
it.
going to be
Oh,
rough to
yeah.
search.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, we can talk about it maybe later.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll explain what RISC is, I guess, real quick.
So, but the difference between the two, so Intel x86, which is the common one that everyone's computer runs, is a complex instruction set. There are thousands of instructions your computer can do. RISC, which is also what ARM is. ARM is a RISC instruction set, RISC-V, and there's another big one called MIPS, but MIPS is, again, more used in industrial and in specialized purposes, is a reduced instruction set computing, which means instead of having, like, I think x86 has 1,700 instructions, RISC has like 50 usually. ARM is like 56. RISC-V is like 52 or something like that. It's not a lot. So you can get away with doing, and then theoretically anything you can do with a CISC instruction set, you can do with a RISC instruction set. It just takes more instructions.
Right, yeah.
So
I guess hypothetically they'll just say, what do you mean? There is an alternative to ARM. It's RISC.
Yeah. And that because RISC is also the big reason why RISC is like everyone's going nuts about it is that it's like the first big open source instruction set. What, Rob? You seem like you want to say something.
Well, I don't know actually if I have anything here, but I'm just going to read this line. So is RISC-V? Is that?
Yeah, that's RISC-V.
RISC-V.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, V5. Haha.
Yeah.
Great.
I don't know why it's called RISC-V actually. I never looked it up.
Maybe it's the
Version 5? No, I don't know.
Actually, I think they did actually have like version 1, 2, 3, and 4. I think RISC-V might be like the mature, like complete one that they want to use.
So the line. So actually, the complaint by the FTC does cite RISC-V based CPUs. they say that they generally do not have the level of technical performance that high-level ADAS systems designers require, and as a less mature architecture, they lack a comparable ecosystem, and then it's all
correct.
redacted.
Like RISC-V is in its infancy.
Yeah, like we don't have phones that run RISC-V.
No.
So
it's all an ARM chipset.
They're saying, so what this is saying is essentially without ARM,
they have a monopoly.
They have a monopoly. But
and I would 100% agree with that.
I would agree with it as well. But what's fascinating about this, though, is this sets a very interesting precedent for world governments and the United States itself, because they're stepping in to stop a monopoly not on manufacturing or even like software specific things itself. They're trying to prevent a monopoly of
a design.
Yeah, it's an idea. And the legal document that they cite in this lawsuit, which is the Clayton Act, it's an antitrust act. It was passed in 1914. And it was,
yes, I learned this during Industrial Revolution American history.
Okay. It was passed in 1914, and then in 1950 they revised it because it originally only focused on stocks. So it was a company or a person buying another company. Now it talks about assets, and assets could literally be anything. Antitrust laws are famously super vague, and like assets could be people, it could be places, it could be ideas. And the fact that the United States is now moving in the direction of, hey, like these are essentially ideas that we need to protect, because if you acquire them, you'll be dangerous to the world market. That's fascinating.
Yeah, we're in the information age now, right?
Yeah. And so people say this all the time, we're witnessing history in the making. But that's literally
I mean, you're
what
always
doing.
witnessing history in the making. Anything that happens this year will be history in 50 years.
Yeah,
so.
no, I had a burrito yesterday from Chipotle.
Dude, that's like ancient history, man. Wow, that's
yesterday.
Nah,
I had
too long ago for me.
I had a burrito from Chipotle yesterday. In 20 years, I'll be part of the statistic that explains why Chipotle now controls like Venezuela or something.
Yeah, right. Chipotle takes over country, sorry.
So like this is just fascinating. Also, like everything in law is based off of precedent. Like what happened before. There really isn't much of a precedent for this. In 2001, Microsoft was sued for antitrust and they lost. But since then, it's been 20 years.
Didn't they get sued? Do you remember why they got sued? Was it for Windows or was it for like Microsoft Word?
I believe it was for Windows. It was the operating system.
Okay,
that
Windows.
they were being sued about. So
why were they being sued over their operating system?
I forget it. So what the FTC said was they had an unfair control.
Unfair control over like the desktop computing space. Yeah.
And granted, that was when the internet was in its infancy, so that fear was very, very real. And now we know, like, we have Windows, we have Linux, we have
Chrome OS.
Chrome OS is just Linux. I refuse.
Yeah, but Chrome OS is crappy Linux, so I consider its own thing.
You have Android. That's also Linux.
It's also just Linux.
But we have Mac OS, which isn't. But it's also Mac OS is BSD based, but whatever.
You basically, I guess you got Mac, you got
Mac,
Windows,
Linux, and Windows.
You got Linux and like maybe Unix, but Unix is
when you
also
boil
sort
it
of
down,
Linux,
you have Mac,
you got three.
Linux, and Windows.
Yeah, you have 3 kernels that have basically ever been made.
Right.
Well, then you have the Unix based kernel, but it's very, very similar to Linux from what I've heard. But it's not based off of Linux, but it is very similar.
So basically, yes, just the big 3.
Yeah.
Big 1 and then slightly larger 2, and then 3 is just a 1%.
Yeah, so you still have. I mean, Microsoft still
almost has a monopoly.
Almost has monopoly.
I would argue that Apple has a much larger monopoly, quote unquote, than Windows actually, because
that's because if you do use their ecosystem, you are locked in. You do not get a choice. You
exactly. That's the thing. I feel
like
like that
into the walled garden. Yeah.
But that might not necessarily be quantified as a monopoly. It would be, I guess, a lack of individual freedom.
Well, I would say it's monopoly though, because first give me the definition of monopoly real quick.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Actually,
good thing to Google.
I prepared for this.
Oh, you prepared for this? Oh,
How many times? All right, new drinking game. Take a shot every time he says I prepared for this.
Well, see, I have 2 pages dedicated to this, and I'm sad. I literally copied and pasted the definition. So blah blah blah.
Feel free to read it word for word. I'm okay with that.
Word for word, it's 4 paragraphs.
Oh, okay,
my gosh!
Wow, what?
What in the world?
Oh, it's legal stuff. That's right.
Yeah, well, legal stuff, but this is the boiled down.
Is this what they define as monopoly in like the FTC document?
So the FTC document doesn't define monopoly. It refers to it as a potential monopoly.
Okay.
I went to the FTC and literally looked up legal.
What they call monopoly. What's the TLDR?
So it's if you can, a monopolist firm is one that can exhibit significant and durable market power. So it's also vague.
I don't follow that. That's so vague.
So it the next sentence is literally the court looks at market share, but market share isn't an accurate predictor of whether or not you're a monopoly.
Yeah, because NVIDIA has like 75% market share in the desktop computing space when it comes to dedicated GPU, but they are not considered a monopoly because there are other options.
Exactly. So then they look at like geographic area. These are international companies dealing with software and
intellectual property.
So it's technically a global geographic area.
So either way, you can't define geographic area at all. In this case.
So the TLDR is it's up to the court to decide
what a monopoly is.
Per case, what a monopoly is. And if you don't mind me going off on a tangent for about like 30 seconds.
Go for it.
What is really interesting about this is the FTC, when they file a complaint against you, you initially don't go in front of a normal court. You go in front of an FTC like judge. So it's the FTC leveling the complaint. It's called a complaint, and then they install what's it's an ALJ. I forget exactly what it stands for, but it's a judge who works for the FTC who needs to decide whether or not that claim is legitimate. And if they find that it is legitimate, then you have to go up to against an FTC commission. So still the FTC. And then if they decide against you, you can appeal it, and it goes straight into the U.S. Court of Appeals, and then it goes straight up to the Supreme Court.
So is this case going to go to the Supreme Court?
I don't think it'll go to the Supreme Court, but with the size of these companies and their wallets,
you wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised if they'd fight it.
The thing that's hard for me though is, let's say it does get up to the Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. This is just a lack of my understanding in terms of the whole judicial branch of the United States, I guess. But like, the Supreme Court judges are not very knowledgeable on this topic.
Yeah, aren't they all like old as all heck, right? Just like a bunch of old people who have no idea how modern technology works.
Exactly.
Like who can barely use their own cell phone, send a text, anything like that.
Like I've seen the Mark Zuckerberg questionings, and I'm like concerned. You know?
Well,
oh man, I love seeing the one about how like this lady's like, how does Google work? How do I get Google? How does my image show up on Google Images? Can you make that stop? That's not how the internet works, lady.
No. Well, I have seen that. Yeah.
That's a legitimate concern, but this, and I'm not a betting man, except when I am. I will say that that NVIDIA will probably lose this case on a couple grounds, and one is like the median age of the people who are going to be trying them is up there, and because of that, they're going to be erring more on the side of caution. I mean, if they rule for NVIDIA, in their mind, it's just like, okay, did I just create a monopoly? So what do we lose if we rule against them? Well, I mean, if it was a legitimate acquisition, it really sucks. It's an overreach of justice, but we'll learn from it. So they'll probably err on the side of caution, rule against them. So I feel like it's going to break down. NVIDIA, their first court date, I believe it's August 8th. 2022. It's in August.
Oh, so you got a lot of time. Well, I forgot the U.S. court system is slow as hell.
They've got a lot of time to pad the justices' pockets to make them rule in favor. Exactly.
But that's when they go in front of the FTC.
That's not even. We haven't even hit the Supreme Court yet.
No.
So, it doesn't go straight to the. So it goes to the FTC judge. Then it goes to the commission if they appeal it, which they will. Then it goes to the United States Court of Appeals. That'll take more time, and then eventually,
then it can work.
So we're looking at half a decade at least.
If they probably. You need to be granted appeal though. So eventually the court might just say,
No, we're done.
Enough is enough. Because the Supreme Court, they don't have to take your case.
Yeah, right. The Supreme Court takes like 100 cases a year
tops.
at most. Yeah, right.
You only hear about maybe 10 of them.
Yeah, right. And each case takes.
If this one does hit it, though, this is going to be one that's going to be broadcast on national TV. This will be a huge one because NVIDIA is a massive company.
It's a massive corporation. Yeah.
Correct.
But also, and I get that judges are supposed to be non-biased, not influenced.
But they are.
But they are.
They are elected under political party. They are.
They are also human.
They are also human. Yeah. The fact that the United Kingdom, which is an allied power,
is also suing them
under their own antitrust and like anti-predatory practice laws, that is definitely going to.
Now, I should mention for anyone who is uninitiated, the only reason why that can't even happen is because ARM is a British company.
Yeah.
So ARM is owned in is officially owned and like sold in the United Kingdom. You can trade it on the New York Stock Exchange, but it's complicated.
Yeah. So ARM are headquartered in Cambridge, United Kingdom. They're owned by Tokyo.
Oh, they're owned by a Japanese company?
They're owned by the SoftBank Group Corporation, which are headquartered in Tokyo, Japan.
Because ARM is officially headquartered in the United Kingdom, they can fall under British law.
They fall under British and
in this case, United States, because NVIDIA is headquartered in the United States.
Yeah, NVIDIA is headquartered in Santa Clara, California. So
like most of Silicon Valley.
Like most of
all of it, you mean?
Yeah. Except for the people that are running away, but
yeah, like Tesla.
Yeah.
But So,
and the company I work for, we're in Texas officially.
So yeah, we're looking at what could potentially be a legal battle that could take several years. So what's most likely gonna happen if I were NVIDIA and I see the writing on the walls, I wouldn't spend the $1 million+ it takes to actually get a Supreme Court lawyer, and I'd walk away.
You would walk away and spend the $40 billion elsewhere.
Yeah, because
do you realize how many billions of dollars they could make with this deal, though, if they do get it?
Exactly. But another thing that's interesting is if you read the complaint, the FTC is putting the burden of proof onto NVIDIA. So ordinarily in like the United States court system,
it's usually the prosecutor has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt
you did something wrong.
Yeah.
But the FTC doesn't have to do that. They have to say you will do something wrong. Prove to me that you won't.
Interesting.
And that's me summarizing it.
It's a quick summary. Obviously, it's probably more nuanced than that.
Yeah, sections 119 and 120 of the complaint are literally just saying, hey, you're still going to have access to ARM technologies. You're going to have access to all of their information that you already had access to before. What is your true purpose with acquiring this? And because of the way that's phrased, it puts the burden of proof on NVIDIA, which is impossible. I really couldn't see a reality where they win this. Or if they do win this, it'll be in legal hell for
many years.
5 years minimum. The Supreme Court is not known for
being speedy.
It's so hard to me, though, because technology, at least as of right now, changes so
it does
quickly.
Change. Yeah, that's
the other thing too. Yeah. NVIDIA may not care in 5 years.
Yeah,
they may not. They may have just fought a 5-year battle and now we don't need ARM anymore. RISC-V is mature enough that we can just use it because it's open source.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I think I agree with Rob on this one. I think NVIDIA will just give up. Yep. I think they're not going to care.
All right, Rob, you've changed my opinion as well. I agree. I think they're probably giving up too.
Wow.
Kyle, final opinion.
We gotta review it. Yep.
I can see both ways still.
You can see both ways still?
Yeah, just because.
Do you want to lawyer him and try to convince him otherwise, or no?
I
start walking circles around the issue. Let's do it. No.
I know I didn't do the best. I didn't have the best argument.
You have more experience than any of us, though.
That's definitely true.
Technically, yes. Technically, but once again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm just
you're a law student.
I'm trying to get into law school. My application is in the mail.
Oh wait, I thought you were already in law school. No. You're not in law school yet?
I'm not in law school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But you're a political science student, so you have the expertise at least better than we would.
Yeah, I'm in the pre-law program, so I'm having a great time over here.
Boop, boop.
Very fun.
We're all UA students, so.
Yeah, we're all UA students.
Right,
yeah, that's very interesting. And that was I wanted that to be the headline topic of this episode was the NVIDIA.
Well,
ARM
it was
acquisition.
the entire episode.
Oh, really? So are we wrapping up?
We're at an hour, so
But
15
I
more
have-
minutes of something. Maybe
I'm gonna
we'll
get
talk
actually-
about
questions
it.
about this though.
Oh, you have questions? Go.
Oh, all right, more questions. Go.
So, one thing I guess I want to clarify about the FTC thing when the FTC files. I don't know the technical terms about this, but
It's a complaint.
Okay,
They file a complaint.
If the FTC files a complaint with NVIDIA, does that mean NVIDIA is legally not allowed to continue to do what they were doing?
It's so the transaction gets frozen.
Okay.
Oh, so they have to stop. They can't even continue working on what they were working on.
So they can.
do you have the law brought up?
I just closed out my freaking information sheet.
Control Shift T.
wow.
Control Shift T.
Yeah, that will be very useful.
I'm gonna remember.
Yeah, for anyone out there, Control Shift T. Control T opens a new tab. Control Shift T on Chrome. Control Shift T opens the last.
Most browsers. It's not just Chrome. It's
Oh,
Firefox,
perfect.
Chromium. So basically any browser.
Control Shift T will open the most recently closed tab.
So I don't have it in front of me right now, but if the FTC files a complaint against an individual, they can immediately freeze their assets. Against a corporation, I believe you just have to stop the action. So if NVIDIA already had was already operating with ARM, so ARM was producing some sort of processor for them, they could still get that. They just can't purchase the company or exhibit any undue influence over the company.
Well, ARM is NVIDIA is a customer of ARM already.
Yeah.
So they can continue working with ARM and making chips.
Yeah,
then.
it's not like they can't talk to each other.
It's crazy that the FTC can just file a complaint though, and it'll stop them.
Yeah.
That is wild to me.
It's possible that was actually the FTC's goal all along, is that they just wanted to stop them long enough for them to give up.
That is.
Has that happened before? I'm sure. Probably has.
I'm not sure what the FTC in regards to the FTC, but in criminal law, there's things called, people kind of joke about, it's not the official term for it, but it's like Al Capone suits, where you can't get someone. So you say you have this person that you're 100% convinced that they murdered someone, I don't know, O.J. Simpson. You can't get them to go to prison. Either you flub the first court case and you can't retry them, or something else happens. Instead of getting them to go to jail for that, that capital offense, you find a bunch of little things to throw at them to send them to prison to get them off the streets. It's not a 1-to-1 ratio, but the FTC just wants to slow them down. And that's the purpose of the complaint, and the purpose of the fact that they need to go in front of a commission. They need to talk to a judge. Well, they talk to a judge, they go to a commission, then they go to the Court of Appeals. It's a very long and arduous process, and the majority of people who get sued by the FTC walk away.
Man,
so in a way, they
so
lose.
crazy.
They forfeit their rights.
Yeah.
They just give up.
Either way, even if NVIDIA wins this, like you said, we're talking about 5 years down the line. Even if it does get expedited.
Is it 5 years? Because it feels like based on the whole process you said, it might even be as far as 20 as more and more different branches come out.
I'm just saying 5 because since it is a big
they're going to
deal,
expedite the case because it's a big company.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
But I'm just pulling that number out of thin air. It could be decades, and especially with an industry like software, like information technology. 5 years is
a lot of
5
time.
years could be a century.
Yeah, literally.
Well, no, that's the thing, is that in the August of next year, RISC-V could be built out enough that NVIDIA doesn't need ARM anymore. They can just build RISC-V chips at the same rate.
Fair. Open source projects generally go really fast because you've got a lot of people pushing new features and new functionality.
Intel is one of the
and
companies that's
interesting
pushing
things in there.
RISC-V now.
Yeah, and so then it's going to give a lot of funding
Google's
and a lot
pushing
of good
it.
engineers
There is a
behind that.
bunch of big ass companies that are like, yes, open source computing. ARM, of course, is scared.
Wait, that's sort of weird. Google is pushing open source computing.
They're pushing it because
it's
it's beneficial for them because they can start building cheap processors using the RISC-V architecture.
Makes sense. More processors that they can use to gather data about you.
Exactly.
Big fun. Yes.
Well, another part of this that actually just popped in my head. I didn't read this anywhere, but if NVIDIA acquired ARM, they don't have to throttle their competitors. They can just make it so easy to acquire their blueprints that they can essentially starve out RISC-V. make it lose all.
So they could do the opposite, where they could just kill Risk
Yeah,
5.
that's what not Carnegie, the oil company in America back when the antitrust laws were introduced. They would literally put a gas station across the street from a gas station that refused to sell to them, and they would just drive down the prices.
Oh, they would just bankrupt the rival oil companies.
They would bankrupt the rival oil companies. So I'm not saying they could do that, because once again, I'm not super familiar with how like software works, but they could just make it
computing. Yeah,
computing. My bad. They could just make it so unappealing for people to invest in Risk 5, because as an individual investor, unless you have billions and you don't mind, why would I invest in something
that could work?
That could work when the alternative is not only cheaper but immediately available.
And you've got to keep in mind proven over many years. Yeah.
I feel like if an ARM processor failed, the people they would get so much hate, so much flack for that, but they also have the resources to remedy that.
Yes, they do.
Risk 5, I'm not sure how large the movement is.
It is pretty big. It's big when it comes to open source and like keeping it free, but compared to ARM, it's very, very small.
Yeah.
So what's the biggest open source movement then? Would it be like Linux or something?
Yeah,
or
I would argue it's Linux.
I would assume it's
because Linux is used by Chrome. That's what the base for Chrome OS. That's the basis for Android and like a bunch of other computing. Because think about it, the Linux kernel is in 50% of Americans' pockets.
Yeah.
Even whether they realize it or not.
Right.
I did not know that.
Android
I was in that group of people that did not realize
Exactly. See, there's my point.
Yeah, not only that, but like also anytime you go to a website, what server is
what server is probably a Linux server.
Yeah, so the desktop, the market share is really small in terms of
it's like
Linux.
5%, I think.
2 to 5%, somewhere in that range.
And it's really weird though.
But if you go to the server side, it's probably Windows servers
Windows,
like 5
so
to 10%,
it's I believe the server one was
Linux.
like 60% Linux, and then
that's a higher percentage of Windows servers than I would have thought.
Yeah, it's just because big corporations like using the same thing on everything. They like being consistent.
It's good to be uniform.
Yeah, so there are like a lot of big corporations that do run Windows servers and would rather run them. But like Google, Amazon, Google and Amazon especially all run Linux servers. I think Microsoft is almost a 50-50 split.
Oh, Microsoft themselves?
Yeah, Microsoft themselves use quite a lot of Linux servers. However, they like to force their employees to use Windows.
That's funny.
So, but I guess my main question though is, with how slow the judicial system appears to be and how fast technology moves, outside of saying you stop at like hypothetically arbitrary points, is the law or indoor judicial system enough to be able to manage what is happening with how it is right now? And that's what I'm afraid of.
No.
Like
Short answer.
It feels to me like a really good way to like format law is like in the form of a Git repo, where instead of having these giant like pieces of documentation that need to be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages long that get seldom approved, and all of it has to get approved or none of it gets approved. Instead, you can make small changes to different parts, any part over at any point in time, and the relevant people who know about that can make the decisions which are related to that. Like,
so
feels like it would be a much better process.
Yes. So breaking that down, so you're essentially saying if you make a law that was kind of like vague, and then you could make interpretations to it.
Yeah, not only that, but also you can do it extremely quickly and also a very short, like quick, short edits versus giant, long edits, because we're in the 21st century and we can do that.
I feel like that could be bad though, because then you'd have a bunch of people with a lot of money pushing for just small little edits that are very specific to them to a law, and it just generally doesn't benefit.
So actually, I think that's a great thing, because then you can have someone else redo that law just as quickly, where as of right now, those giant people just get a little snippet in this giant document, and then they just get their way, and it's their way for forever.
So I guess
Disney with copyright law.
We kind of have something like that. It's legally considered fast, but I don't think you're gonna like the time frame.
All right, give it to me. What's the time frame?
So in Congress, people because Congress is obviously polarized.
Right.
politicians still want to get things passed. So what they'll do is they'll pass vague pieces of legislation, and then get this, they'll let the courts determine
what the legislation
what
means.
it means.
Oh boy.
And that's essentially what an antitrust suit is. That's why we haven't gotten a big one in 20 years, because they're super vague and you have to let the courts determine what they mean. And that is a massive burden to put on the court system.
Yeah, it's a huge burden.
That's
and
why
a
this
huge undertaking.
NVIDIA ARM acquisition is such a huge thing right now.
Exactly, because a justice, anyone in law, but a justice, a judge in general, their job is to determine what the law tells them. So did this person is this person guilty of crime X? Well, crime X is defined as this. Did they do that? Yes or no? Are there any mitigating factors? Was it if someone died, was it self-defense? Were they, under the influence of anything? We're in the realm of an antitrust suit, super vague. We're letting the courts decide what they mean. They don't want to do that. That's why we haven't gotten one in 20 years. So, to answer your question, we have that, but it takes decades. It takes decades.
Decades is crazy. Like literally, like.
Well, you also got to think, Kyle. We're in the technology field. We're used to having rapid response. Yeah. Well, this is normal. This is how the rest of the world works, dude.
Yeah.
But because I know rapid response is possible since we do it.
I mean, even hardware takes a long time.
Yeah, even hardware relative to you and I being software
hardware, make prototypes. Depending on what you're doing, it could also be 5 years to make a new product.
Yeah, to make a new product, but each of those prototypes, I guess, is the realm I'm in, because like
you can't prototype a law, dude.
Yeah, that's fair.
You can't. But
why not?
Why not? Let me
That's a loaded question.
Let me push this prototype law.
To kind of paint it in a different light, I'm going to tell you a story that happened. It's kind of NSFW, but
oh boy, it was. Rob proceeds to spend the next 10 minutes discussing topics that cannot be hosted on YouTube.
Because that was one judge for one court case. In order for that,
to propagate.
Yeah, in order for that to propagate, another judge needs to get a similar case, look at that judge and say, yeah, that guy did the right thing, and copy that. And
right.
That needs to happen again and again and again.
And then finally it becomes law.
Right, and then you have a legal precedent there.
It technically becomes law. Technically.
But it's not written down. It's precedent. It's not law.
Right.
Exactly. And that's all the United States legal system is. It's just precedent. I could write a law tomorrow that says anyone wearing khakis should be executed. Well, then you're going to have one judge that says, I'm wearing khakis right now. This shade is khaki. And then another judge looks at Chandler's blue jeans and says, no, that's khaki. Well, you need many, many court cases to flesh that out if it's a broad law.
I love how extreme you went with your example too.
It is pretty funny, yeah. I gotta say.
because the law is not it's written rigidly, but real life isn't rigid. We
change every day and every week and year. There's differences in our society. Yeah.
Only the Sith deal in absolutes.
Yes, I love the Star Wars quote, which I think is a good time to end. So Kyle and/or Ian, you guys want to wrap this up?
Yeah, well, thank you guys so much for watching. I guess we're sort of ending on a depressing note, but I'm sorry. Hey, man.
We talked about a lot of really good topics.
We talked about a lot of really good topics, from cars to ARM, and that's honestly sort of it.
Yeah, but we went really deep into the NVIDIA ARM acquisition.
We did go pretty deep. That was a good deep dive, and it was certainly very informative. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for presenting, and have a good one.